felt it would give us the best access to the strongest possible group of senior insurance decision makers.
InsurTech Insights is a must-do conference, I think, for the network that is built here.
But today's final topic is carriers and agents building stronger alliances through digital innovation. I'm going to pass you over to your moderator, Alexis Vaughan, to kick off things. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Alexis Vaughan, and yes, they did save the best panel for last. So I'm really excited about this topic because this is something that is near and dear to my heart, the distribution chain. And I feel like we don't talk about it enough when it comes to developing InsurTech and insurance and technology solutions for the insurance industry. So I have some incredible panelists here today. We're going to talk about carriers and agents and the stronger alliances that we can have through digital innovation. So we're going to kick it off, and we'll get our panelists to give us a brief introduction of themselves. Please tell us your name, your company, and we'll kind of move from there.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm Deep from Agilix, and we build software, so we are tech guys stuck in a lot of insurance people around here. But yeah, we are building tech for insurance for the last 10 years. Main focus is on the intermediaries. We work with insurance brokers, we work with agencies, we work with even bank assurance. Lots of things are happening. We have seen the pace going up in last few years, and it's exciting time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexis. My name is Margot Giles. I'm the CEO of Iris InsurTech. And Iris, for lack of just totally bridging what Iris is down to something very small, we are a broker platform in the US and Canada that focuses on human in the center instead of policy in the center, and facilitating data exchange and trust between carriers and brokers, and one day maybe reinsurers as well. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name's John Heaney. I'm the CEO of Great American UK. We started in the UK in 2019, and if anyone's doing a startup, here's some advice. Don't start up a few months before a global pandemic, okay? It's not good timing, not good timing. Previously I worked for AIG, AXA, Hiscox, so worked for a number of different insurers, and look forward to talking to the rest of the panel today.
Hi, my name is Jana. I represent Suited, a 2-year-old company which is a distributor in the small business insurance and a partner of Great American.
Amazing. So, and last but not least, so I'm the founder and CEO of Off Course. We are the premier InsurTech and FinTech strategy consulting firm. We work with startups everywhere from pre-seed to late-stage startups. We help them do everything from strategy, on go-to-market, marketing, talent, and operations. We make sure that you don't burn through your money as soon as you get it. We want to make sure that you're in a position to scale your business. And then we also scout for VCs, M&As, and reinsurers. And we actually help our startups also with fundraising by building their pitch decks and all of those great things. So I thought it was really important that we kind of start off the conversation with what type of InsurTechs we actually have on the panel, because InsurTech is such a broad word, and I love the fact that this panel is very diverse. So these are some very different types of InsurTechs, plus mixing a carrier in the mix. So I thought it'd be really helpful for us to kind of hear from you all on like, where do you sit in that ecosystem when it comes to an InsurTech? And let's start with you on that, Deep.
As earlier I mentioned, right, so we are tech guys. So I call myself as InsurTech, but a lot of people say, do you sell policies? No. So that is one big, you can say, difference in terms of InsurTechs. Right? Not every InsurTech is actually doing insurance, so we don't do insurance. But we, of course, work with the insurance. We work with all the intermediaries. So that's where we are. I see myself as a tech company, but others see us as an InsurTech company. But that's what we do, yeah.
So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you know this was a very hotly debated topic.
Absolutely.
We talked about this a lot. What does an InsurTech mean? And my view of it is very streamlined. Iris is a SaaS, B2B SaaS platform that focuses on InsurTech as a vertical, or insurance as a vertical. But I always like to look at it this way. If your revenue comes from the sale of insurance policies, you're an insurance company. This is my divisive topic for the day. If your revenue comes from the sale of technology, you are a technology company. So I think it's very simple. We look at where the revenue comes from, but Iris is firmly on the SaaS tech side, although I spent 17 years as a broker and still own several brokerages, so I get to kind of toe the line a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Yana, let's hear from you on that one.
So we are exactly the opposite. We sell insurance. We just happen to be using our own technology to do it more efficiently and reach the customer nationwide, hopefully at some point Europe-wide.
So, John, we'll actually start with you on this next one. So, I'm sure everyone wants to know, I mean, it's the theme of the panel. How are you building alliances as a carrier with agents as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, coming to places like this, meeting people, we had, I think, Great American made a team of 6 people here over the last couple of days trying to get out and see what's going on and what people are building. So, just being out there and being open to people, reaching out to us as well is absolutely key. And I think once people see what we are doing and how we're doing things differently, we are getting a lot of approaches from, I'm going to say insurtechs, okay? A lot of approaches from insurtechs, different companies, different brokers who have new innovative ideas, and that's what we love. We like to be different as an insurer. So working with all this great brain power is fantastic for us.
I love that. So, Yana, we'll kick it to you as well. So, how are you building those alliances with carriers? I mean, Great American is one of your partners, right?
Indeed. Look, for us, it was a bit of a challenge because we brought to the table a couple of things with Suited, and that is where we actually deployed the technology to serve the customer primarily. Because prior to Suited, I worked in building trading platforms for insurers, MGAs, and I learned that really the technology was always used to accommodate the needs of the insurer, and the customer came second, and so the final solution was always a bit clunky. So we approached Suited from the other end, you know, what does it need to do for the customer? We kind of stitch ourselves up a little bit because you're a startup and you've got somewhat a different proposition for the insurer, and so insurers generally don't like startups, too much of a risk. And then you bring something else to the table that's going to challenge them internally, their business processes. So we had to prove to the insurer that ultimately, if they work with us, what we do will benefit them as well. And I'm hoping that John will agree. We have sort of a working concept now that actually how we do business works both ways for the customer and for the insurer.
I love that. So I know specifically with Margot, you are working with agents and also moving into the carrier space. So you can kind of speak to the alliances from both sides. Would love to hear your viewpoint on that.
Yeah, so I think I was a broker for 17 years. So I think inherently I was on the front line of the distrust. I think we have to talk about what's wrong before we can fix the problem, right? There is a lot of distrust between all of the people in the value chain, but especially between agents, brokers, and their carrier partners a lot of times. And you see that manifest itself in really the submission process, which is to me the biggest part, right? We as brokers will go out and we build this wonderful application and we're on site and we're doing our job and we're finding out all of the data. And then we put it in a document and we send it to the carrier and they go, thanks, I'm going to have these 9 people do the same thing that you just did because we want to make sure it's right. Yeah. And so inherently that process feels like there's distrust between the two. And there's always this, on sales is always trying to make a sale. The product is always trying to build the product. And I think even in tech, there's that disconnect there. Yeah. So with Iris, it was really a focus on, okay, how can we build a secure connection and a trusted data source sharing between those two entities. So if they know it's coming from an Iris agent, that their data has structure, it's been verified, there's some stewardship there, right? And then how do we build that in Horizon 2 and 3 for us is create a marketplace where we can actually exchange that data in a better way than PDF to email to PDF. So I think that was our focus is in the beginning, just rebuilding just the inherent trust between the two entities.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things that I think is going to be different here, so I would love to hear your take on this, Deep, is that you are what we would consider a vendor to the insurance industry. So I would love to kind of hear your take on how that's been going with you.
Actually, it's surprising, right? So agents works with the carriers, and a lot of times we are the one as a middleman. We are trying to make those two guys work well. which is like, I'm an outsider, I'm a techie guy, and this agent is your partner, right? Why we have to do it? But it's very much true. We have seen it. Agencies, especially the one which are a little bit smaller, bigger guys have their ways around, right? But a little bit smaller guys, I need an access to API from whatever insurer, and it's like a challenge for these guys, how to go around all that. But what I'm seeing is that technology is kind of a glue among all of these guys within this value chain, right? Which can actually help. There is still a lot of work to be done, especially if you go towards the commercial lines. Personal lines, a lot of things have happened. You can see a lot of apps and portals and a lot of stuff is there. But commercial side is still way, way, way long way to go. Maybe another 5 years, I don't know. But that is where the biggest challenges are. And I think technology is actually which can solve this to some extent, building the trust like the data part, right? A lot of those things technology can help, and that's what my biggest take. That's why I feel not that outsider. I'm a technology. I'm trying to be that glue to be, to improve these alliances. That's why I like it. Yeah.
I love that. One of the things that I think I've spoken to a few people about this because I also come from the distribution side. I've literally been everybody in the distribution chain. I've been a captive agent, an independent agent, an MGA owner, a broker for a top 4 firm, and then an insurtech executive. So, and also worked for a carrier. So literally, I've pretty much been around the world when it comes to insurance. So one of the things that I'm kind of always having to tell the distribution chain side of it is that, the insurtech space and the technology that's being developed is not actually here to replace you. It's here to streamline your processes. So what I'd love to hear from the panel is, how have you worked to keep that human-centered approach at the core of technologies that you've either developed or, John, in your case, even acquired or partnered with?
Yeah, I think when we are looking at technology, we've got to look at and deploying some of the technology, and probably Suit is a good example, where we started to do sort of monthly policies, which is a whole different thing. Now, what that means, front of office, it's great for the customer and so on. They can buy a monthly policy, but from the insurer's point of view, that now means we have to do a whole load of things very differently in internal processes. Things like how are you going to earn the premium when it's monthly? How does that impact on solvency calculations? So on, so on. So there's a whole load of back office stuff that we need to change. And the core part around that is making sure that our staff understand what's going on. So it's great we have the customer front and centre at mind, obviously, which you do. But then I've got another set of human beings, which are my staff, and I need to make sure that anything we're doing is going to work and we can get the processes built as well. So keeping that 2 sets of people in mind is quite key for me, really.
I love that. Yana, I'd love to hear from you, especially because this just makes perfect sense for us to transition to your perspective on that.
Jim described it perfectly well. Why a lot of insurers said no to us at the beginning, because when they calculated the cost of all that, they said, we love your idea, we love where you're going with this, but it's just too much resources committed to a startup that we don't know that it's going to succeed. And we are sort of immensely grateful to Great American to take us on, because now we are looking for a new insurer, and suddenly there is no issue, because we are a proven concept that this can actually benefit. Even though there is some resource required at the beginning, the benefits are tangible. It's streamlined processes within the insurer. We make for a very good low-touch partnership, and it's just.
But isn't that like a theme, though? I've noticed going to these conferences for the last year or two, this sort of customer, like this focus back on the customer now. Yeah. I've heard that a bunch in these panels, and I think it's great that the tech is finally reflecting that. Your journey and my journey are very similar, because when I approach a brokerage who's used to dealing in the paperwork and the policy, and I tell them, well, I need you to understand your customer, and they go, well, how? Because I'm not used to collecting data on the customer. I'm used to thinking about it as a policy or as a risk and not as a person behind that. Even when you get into commercial, which I like to remind people is a large corporation is still a group of human beings. Yes, and they move in and out of that corporation, and what they do and how they buy is still very dictated by who they are as a person.
Absolutely.
And it's 2024, like we have the technology to be able to say, this unique person moves through the value chain this way. This is how they want to buy insurance. And I always laugh because it feels a little arrogant of all of us to say, well, it's expensive for me to redo my internal process, so I don't really care if you buy my product. And you're like, well, that's fine until you hit a hard market.
Yeah.
And then that's not fine anymore when everybody's going to vie for the same customer. And now, to me, that's the worst time to try to fix the customer experience because the customer has already gone somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I've seen that theme, and I think the hard market kind of pushes us towards like, hey, at the end of the day, we rely on customers to buy our product. And if we're not serving them, then we're not doing the right thing.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to add to that, Yana?
No, that's pretty much, well described, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
good.
I'll
Yes, we'd love to hear from you
I'll
on
add a
this.
bit, right? So before we get into the insurance software or insurtech, right, we actually were doing the CRM application where there's a lot of focus on the customer side. You know, you are building the relationships. And when we come into the insurance and of course, all of our learning of CRM, we thought, this can be a good thing for insurance. And while talking to the people, like, nobody cares. It was that bad, Even now also, if I look at my whole technology stack and see what people are actually using, it's not the CRM portion. It's the actual billing and policy and that kind of stuff is which mostly people. It still needs a lot of effort to actually make this industry a bit humanized, which is still far.
Well, it needs a little integration.
I know.
Because you can't have your
Absolutely.
CRM away from your billing, away from your policy admin system, and think that those things are going to flow together well.
True.
Yeah,
True.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yana, I want to ask you a little bit about, because I know you mentioned earlier how Great American was amazingly your first partner, and what we love to kind of hear from you, because I feel like we don't talk about this enough at these conferences, is how hard was it for you to get capacity, and how were you able to build those alliances and partnerships, and what are some blockers that you were seeing?
Well, I've described a couple of the blockers already. A, being a startup. That's it's definitely a blocker.
Without questioning.
Challenging the internal processes and the underwriting approach is definitely not a good thing to do for a startup. You either have to back it up with capital, pre-existing book of business, or some guaranteed partnership that's going to, ease your distribution. We had none of that. So that's generally every startup faces these issues. I think it's also the pace that the insurers tend to move in the UK. I don't think they quite appreciate that as a startup you've got not unlimited amount of money, and that's going to run out at some point. So what you can't afford to do is to sit around and wait for somebody to get back to you, which can take months sometimes. Yeah. And then even when you get to the end, suddenly somebody at the top says, actually, it's not really working for us, so we're not going to say yes to this in the end. And this has happened to startups, luckily not to us, because we got the no pretty early on from those who didn't want to work with us. But I think, sometimes the big guys don't really quite appreciate how tight things are for the startups, and that the pace, or at least if they're going to say no, say it early on. Don't say it 2, 6, 12 months later when all the resources have been spent and they are ready to launch.
John, I'd love to hear from you kind of around this topic. What are some characteristics that you're really looking for in an insurtech when you're wanting to partner with them and build some type of alliance? Because there are not a lot of CEOs like you out here, John. He's like, I'm going to be the first partner that you have, and I really, really want to push towards innovation. So what are some characteristics that you're looking for when you're like, okay, this is a good opportunity to partner with this type of insurtech?
Yeah, it's a good question. Probably we're looking for something different. That would be the core thing for us. So how is this going to make a difference? How is it going to be different in the market? Is it going to be successful? Is it going to be good for the customers that we want to do business with as well? But before we even get into the technology, it's very much around the people. Insurance is still a people industry, and what we would be doing before we go anywhere is looking to see what's the history of this partner. And Yana mentioned before, she worked a previous company that we had known, and we knew Yana previously. So we know that it's somebody with enthusiasm, energy, someone who's going to deliver results. So you're looking for that historic part of it. And then you're looking at the actual proposition and then the technology bit comes at the end. Really, it's all about, what's the vision? Do we share the same values? Are we trying to do the right thing? So yeah, but no different whether it's a tech or a broker or anything. Before you get to the detail, it's about the people, and that's what we focus on initially.
Absolutely. Margot, I'd love to kind of hear from you on this because I know you have a ton of great partners. So give us, from an InsurTech perspective, what are some of the even common traits you're looking for in a potential partner, whether it be a carrier, MGA?
So I think startups, this was a lesson my sales team had to learn very early on, which is in the beginning as a startup, you don't have the luxury of waiting 8 months and spending the resources to hear a no. And so we had to learn very quickly early on who is a first adopter of technology. Like, we needed to find the Johns. And sometimes that meant saying no to really, really big accounts that we knew, we probably could win it, but the resource allocation was going to be so great that the risk was going to be, too great for us to take on. And so a lot of it was learning the sales cycle quickly and understanding the buyer and who was ready to actually be a first adopter. Because a lot of times they say they're tech forward and they're innovative, but at the end of the day, really they might be on the cusp of this, but they still want maybe that 10% to adopt first. So it's really key to identify those true visionaries, and when, like you said, aligning with the people first, and then making sure that they fit where you're at in your company's journey, and not getting sort of over your skis too early. I've seen a lot of InsurTechs fail in that way.
Deep, I'd love to hear from you on this topic.
It's very similar to what Margot said, right? But the thing is, it's not easy to know that. I'll just share one without taking a name, a big career. And we get into the POCs, we wanted to implement stuff, but Asia is not famous for paid POCs, which probably UK and US are, but so we are doing for free with less money, but we worked on, I think, almost for 3 months. And then we came to know, some M&A happened and this career gone into another career and the whole thing just gone. So that part is very difficult for startups, whether you are a tech-based startup or whether you are an insurance-based startup, right? But it's a skill. It's definitely a skill. Which one, as a startup, anything which comes to us seems like a big opportunity. Hey, this big company, you get excited very easily. But probably you have to burn a while, then only you realize what to do, where to put in your efforts and all. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a skill, and the earlier you learn this skill, the better for you. Yeah.
Yana, I'd love to hear from you on this. What are some common traits you were looking for? Like when I know that you had a ton of meetings too before you actually got a yes from John. So what are some traits that you were looking for?
In a career relationship?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely that sort of slightly adventurous streak. Smaller generally works because the bigger the organization, the slower the decision process. And life insurers who love to innovate, who love to look at new segments, new products, do a bit of brainstorming, see if you can come up with something new. It just makes the work somewhat more interesting, more exciting. That's generally, but very much personal connection. You want to work with somebody who you like, and insurance is very much like that. It's the alliances are built through, positive relationships.
I love that. So what I'd love to hear from all of you is how are you empowering brokers and agents to transition to this new tech when they're currently using or more familiar with legacy tech? So I know that it's different.
I wish I knew the answer.
From the InsurTech perspective, and then John is transitioning people from legacy tech within the carrier space. So John, let's start with you on that.
We are very, very fortunate at Great American as we started up in 2019, so we don't have that legacy issue. So thank goodness. But I have worked in previous insurance companies, and some of the the IT changes are phenomenal. And I think it's important for InsurTechs when they're coming to pitch to an insurance company. Think about the issues the insurance company has. The IT director, manager's got 27 different programs. Half of them are 5 years late already. You know, it's all the usual kind of stuff. So just think about that, you know, what's going on in that IT world, and do they have the space to do what you want to do? That is very much the issue to what Shanna's alluding to earlier on, that people are very, very, very busy in insurance companies, so trying to do something different, innovative with them is quite hard. And they will probably do one or two of those things per year, maybe every 2 years, and then just look at the number of exhibitors here over the last couple of days, hundreds of them, and you know, all trying to sell to these very, very, very busy people. So, yeah, it's difficult. So when I worked in places that had the legacy systems, very, very difficult to be innovative, which is kind of why I moved to Great American in 2019 as a startup to have a green field, basically.
I love that. Now, Margot, I know this is one of your favorite topics.
Well, I in fairness, I was a broker, and I went through my own journey of understanding technology, right? And so I kind of went through that process. I was also a consultant for 5 years doing digital transformation for really large carriers and brokers, and being a cog in the wheel, right? And being an SME in that space. And what I what I learned in those 5 years was no one knows what they're doing. Nobody really knows what they're doing. They think they know, and then some of them know, but they don't. So for me, with Iris, because we are a core system and we are changing at the core of how people are collecting data, it was a process of learning. We approached it from a very educational standpoint. So like, I don't gatekeep even the smallest agencies that come on Iris. Everything I've learned over the past 15 years. Like, I wrote it down. I made a capabilities chart. I wrote, if you're an agency of this size, here's an implementation process you should follow. Here's the pitfalls you need. And to me and our competitors in the space, this is something that you usually pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a consultant to tell you that may or may not pan out, and a lot of times it doesn't. And instead of gatekeeping that in professional services fees, we said, well, no, if we're going to make a true difference here, like this is knowledge that our customers need to be successful on our platform. And so we've given it away, and we've kind of approached it from an educational standpoint, as opposed to here's our software, here's 5 SIs, have at it, right? Like, we're very, very particular about the implementation process because of that.
Yana, I'd love to hear from you on this.
Well, we obviously don't work with brokers or agents because we are directly to the consumer. Okay. So I'm effectively that.
So Deep, any thoughts you want to give to this topic as well?
Sure. One thing which I have learned over many years of technologies, we may be thinking technology is the greatest thing of the all, but probably brokers don't think that way. They don't think that technology is the thing, right? So yeah, it's there, it's needed, times are changed, you can't do everything manual, you have to change, but still it's not something which is the thing for them to do. For them, relationships with the carriers, with the customers, with all those guys is way higher value as compared to the technology. At times they are okay, you talk about efficiencies and saving some hours or days, they say, it's okay, not important. So the important is for you to understand from their point of view. That is what we think is the key thing. Otherwise, they always think that you're trying to push things to us rather than trying to understand what we need and how you actually solve that. So we always do very deep that kind of a sessions with guys to understand what are their things, not really talking about the technology, at least not in the beginning, and then later we see which works. Yeah.
Deep, do you see, because I see it in our sales process too, that when you said that they don't care about the operational efficiencies. Well, that might be true at the C-suite, or that might be true at the highest level, but I can assure you that customer service representative who has to type 73 clicks to get to a page,
Absolutely.
They care about your operational efficiency. And this is really difficult to quantify, I've noticed, when you're selling into insurance companies, because it's an unknown number, right? But you have to think of what is the cost to replace that employee that doesn't want to work for you anymore because they can go work in a different industry that doesn't require them to do that? Like, what is the cost of the man hours? Like, what is the replacement cost on training and bringing somebody in. How, like, those are costs that are very difficult to quantify, but they're very real. And so the CFOs in the room, like, you can usually get them to move the needle. But I think there's, like, a culturally, on the broker side in particular, there's a disconnect between the highest level of operations and the ones that are in the seat, and even the agents that are out selling, because they also want that operation. They don't want to type it in either.
I'll tell you a little bit, kind of opposite of this also I've seen, right? I have brokers where there are ladies, or I'll say aunties, very aged kind of a person, and they don't want to change. They are okay with 75 clicks, So you have that kind of a segment, which probably is, maybe it's this industry, right? There are people who work for years and years and years within the same industry, and they don't want to cheat. They don't mind 75 clicks. But young generation, definitely. One is they don't want to get into that company where the technology is very old. That is one big cost actually for a lot of people. You have to grow your business. You have to hire new people. And if these guys don't like your environment, they don't want to work with you. Definitely that is one thing. But there are a lot of existing guys who don't want to change.
Yeah, I agree with that. So Margot, what I'd love to hear from you, I know this is one of the things that has worked very well for Iris, is how are you leveraging your personal brand to build alliances, specifically when your solution is very new to the market?
Oh, that's Yana, you said the same thing. It's like you and John, you have to leverage your personal relationships in this business in particular, especially in insurance. Because if you're starting a new company and it's a novel idea and no one's ever done it before, there's a lot of unknown, and so you can mitigate some of that unknown if they are familiar with your work product or the work product of a company that you worked at prior. And so it has been, just critical for me. And this was something I started years before really we brought Iris to the market, which was, okay, again, being in the consulting space, like, how can I deliver as a consultant? Not just get the paycheck, because there's a lot of consultants that are there and they'll give you the words and then they're out. But like, how do I build a credibility for delivering a product before I actually built a product to be delivered? And there were many clients that I consulted for that ended up coming on as first adopters for Iris because of that reason. And I cannot stress that enough. Like, people are going to research you, especially if you're selling into large corporations. This is going to be, they're going to ask around, they're going to understand what you did prior and how your work ethic is. And if you are not measuring up, it's really difficult to sell into.
Absolutely. Your reputation is everything, because if you can't deliver on what you're putting out there that you can do, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, because I know that happens a lot with startups. It can make a huge difference in the adoption, and also the insurance and insurtech industry is very small. Word will get around.
Very true.
Yana, I would love to hear from you. How are you leveraging your personal brand?
Well, it's so when I started in insurance, I started at Lloyd's of London. And that's exactly, quite right. You say something in the one corner of the building, and before you walk around, the person on the other side already knows it. Right? I come from the Czech Republic, and we're quite crafty. And another thing I learned very early on is that what you say is taken at its face value.
Yes.
Right? So there's big deals being done at Lloyd's of London. Nobody has the time to go over the little detail and get evidence for this, evidence of that. So as a broker, I say something and it's taken at its face value and it must be true. Because the moment you found out that you misled on any front or try to tweak the risk so it becomes more acceptable, you're out. Your reputation gets established very quickly. So yes, insurance markets seems to be big, but it isn't. Everybody knows everybody. And it's no longer true just around London, it's sort of worldwide. I keep seeing people, they move from one company to another, but ultimately it's a small market and you have to behave yourself. You have to be open, honest, and if things are not going well, say it, warn that it may not be so great, because I think ultimately that's what the market appreciates, trust and honesty. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and you have to build your reputation and future success exactly on that.
Deep would kind of love to hear your perspective, because I know it's a little different than everyone else.
I mean, it's true what these ladies have said, right? The reputation is, but for us it's a little bit different because not just me, but others also see us as an outsider, right? We are not in the insurance. So we have that double edge kind of a thing, not just the reputation in terms of technology, but understanding of the industry. A lot of people always tell me, no, we are different. I go to multiple countries, "Oh, you have worked in Singapore, yeah, it's fine, but we are totally different." But internally, I know it's not that different, right? So regulations from one country to another country, there will be differences, but not that significant differences. But everybody thinks, we are different. So time and time, you have to prove that part, right? So if you do certain mistakes in the past, that definitely will come back and haunt you, right? So it has to be in that way, and that's how you'll slowly grow. Whether it's technology, whether it's regulatory, whether it's delivering customers, case studies, whatever, it builds on top of it.
But you also have to be on, because nothing goes 100% right all the time, right?
Of course.
So a lot of it is communication too. If something isn't going right, or
Yeah.
right,
Absolutely.
we're delayed, or something is not as it was supposed to be. Your integrity also, not just on delivering every time, but then how do you handle yourself when the delivery does not go as expected? Because that's really majority, you're going to run into that.
I always tell this to all of my customers, when you start the project, that don't think everything will go as per the project plan. There will be delays, there will be things. And delay is not because somebody did wrongly or tell you in a wrong way, right? Delay because there could be changes. There could be things which we never thought of earlier. There could be those things. But how best you can handle that? And if the communication is good, we are making everybody aware of what's going on with the regular check-ins and all those things, actually it comes out well. But only when you start to hide things or you think this will go against me, I shouldn't say, that's where the problem actually starts. That also actually we learned it quite early, and we are very, very particular about this thing, communication. That works out always well, actually. Yeah.
So John, as we get ready to wrap up, what I would love to hear from you from a carrier perspective, what are some things that you feel like InsurTechs need to do better at when approaching building alliances with carriers?
Not aimed at Jana in any way, just to be very clear. But I would say the key thing would be do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And that is the biggest area that you will see in InsurTech, is that delivery, which can be delayed for reasons and so on. So just be open and honest. If you're not going to deliver on time, if it's not going to happen when you said it would, or it's going to cost a bit more, whatever it's going to be, then just share that and share it quickly. Deep is saying, don't hide it, basically. So it's all about delivery and meeting client expectation. I think that's the best advice I would give.
Absolutely. So I love to kind of hear about this from the InsurTech specifically, because there's that fail fast motto that we've talked about in the startup world. So what do you think, even from your perspective, that can be done better so that it sets the tone for other InsurTechs coming behind you? And I'll start with you, Jana.
Yeah, it's a really topical question, isn't it? Because 2024 has been a bit of a carnage for InsurTechs here in the UK. Quite a few are folding or about to fold.
Yeah.
It's an interesting market because every failure represents an opportunity, but also makes it tougher for the next InsurTech to come in, because everybody is so much more cagey as a result, whether it's the investor, the insurer, or anybody else in the value chain. So I think, for us it was always plan carefully, include the worst case scenarios. And so when proposing, whether to an insurer or anybody else, be conservative in terms of what you're going to do, how you're going to achieve it, because we just don't want to join the parade of 2024.
I get that. Deep.
I mean, this is what I have seen in insurance. The fail fast thing actually doesn't work, or at least nobody wants it to do it that way. I always ask the carriers, why are you not working with 10 different InsurTechs? And if 6 fail, also at least 4 will be successful, rather than spending the whole time and effort on 1 or maybe 2, in a year. But that's how it is, right? So I don't think fail fast will, I won't say ever come, but not so soon. Not so soon. The regulations, the thing, they don't want anything to go wrong. The whole penetration testing, they want it so many times with 3 different vendors and all. I don't think it will change so soon. But yes, still, it's like 2 things merging, right? One is the IT startup, that kind of environment, which is fail fast, and one is this regulatory. We'll meet somewhere to an agreeable kind of a thing. But yeah, it's a desired thing.
Yeah, 30 seconds left. I have so much to say on this topic.
I know you do.
I think you're right. There's a merging because, and some of it comes from financing. So you have to realize I'm this weird place in the middle where I've been a broker for so long, but now I'm in the tech space. And when I went to get funding, and I go the VC route, because this is what you do when you're a tech company. VCs in particular are not. They don't love I'm not going to fail fast 100 times, right? I'm not going to go to market with something that I know is subpar so that I can get top line ARR so that you can, we can have a party about it, right? So especially in core tech, there is a minimum, in my opinion, level of functionality that an insurtech startup should possess before they go to market. And that is incongruent with what most startup capital fundraising vehicles are actually selling. So there's this big group of, and I know in my own group of insurtech startups, we talk a lot about just how do we actually find the capital that is insurance friendly, that understands that there is going to be a longer tail, but that insurtech is worth investing in. And I think we've seen a lot of VCs, especially in Silicon Valley, that came in the early 2000. Right after the pandemic, and there was a bunch of money and it flooded the market, and then what happened? It failed real fast. And so I think one thing that I think insurers can do is be a little more proactive and long-term thinking about funding. Well, maybe this product isn't deployable in year 1, but it's investable for year 5, and start thinking about that in terms of, instead of a paid POC, right? How about an investment and you grow with that company? And they're not, and there's CVC, but it's not the same. They should be thinking longer term.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope that everyone was able to get something out of this amazing panel. Do we have any questions as we get ready to wrap up? Any questions, comments from the audience?
Is there a wine bar close by? The first question.
Everybody's like, the bar
Look, she
is
showed up as soon
open.
as I said it.
Look, literally, she showed up with the wine glass. We want to thank you so much for your time. I want to thank this amazing panel. Thank you so much. The conversation was amazing. I hope that everyone was able to get something out of this great discussion. And thank you for sitting through the last panel session of the entire conference with us. We really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.